Welcome to the Pub Date Podcast, the show where two book broads discuss what should happen before, during, and after your book publication date. Brought to you by Broad Book Group, with your hosts Vanessa Campos and Jen Dorsey.
Just dancing over here, dancing into the weekend. That has a really nice little, I said this before. I think I said it in the last episode. I never get tired of listening to her.
I know. I like our little intro. It's friendly. It's welcoming. Yeah. It makes me want to dance on into the weekend because it's Friday.
Right? Friday. Oh yeah. I got some really good sweet potatoes because went to Costco, did my Costco run, got some really good sweet potatoes from Roots. They were on sale, huge bag, 2 pounds. Just going through them with my air fryer. They're delightful.
That's wonderful. I love summer. I love all the summer foods. We're living on corn and cantaloupe and tomatoes here because it's that season in the Midwest. So it's awesome. And then, I'll go back into my hibernation cave in winter and eat very heavy things, which I should not do. But that's okay. That's all right. But I'm ready. I'm ready for the weekend. I've been working hard all week. You've been working hard all week. Publishing's it's a lot. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And you go into it thinking it's beautiful. It's like, I'm going to make beautiful books and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It's a business. And, you see that as, I don't know about you, but like when I started, many, many moons ago, you go into it doing the one thing and then you learn the other thing and then you learn the other thing and then you learn how the sausage is made. And then you're like, oh, okay. Well, this is less romantic than I thought it was going to be. It's not like, well, maybe it is like that show. The show with Hilary Duff. Oh, what was it called? She's in book publishing.
I don't remember.
It's Friday.
I'm too old to remember.
I saw bits and pieces, but I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds cool. And just like publishing, there were no people of color. Oh, maybe there was one. People of color and, all of that good stuff. The men always took over. It's a business and then business sucks. And just it's not as pretty as you thought it was going to be or as cool.
You know what? You're right. And I think that's why we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about today. So I think we both get questions from people all the time about how do you break into book publishing? So today we're going to change it up a little bit. And instead of talking about publishing your book and how that piece works, we wanted to talk a little bit about how the sausage gets made and what it's like to have a career in publishing and how do you get one? Because I think it's, for whatever reason, it seems somewhat mysterious for people. They're always asking, well, how does that happen? And it does. It sounds very cool and romantic, and it is. It's in a lot of ways it's that, but in a lot of ways it's not. So we're going to talk about that today. How do I break into book publishing? So let's share our journeys because they're both different, but I think the common thread is that everyone comes to publishing through some funky, weird way because there's no one way to do it.
It's true. And you always think about location. Like when I was in college and I was thinking like, oh, okay. So I went to school for journalism during a time where, newspapers were folding. And I was like, well, I might as well get a minor in marketing. The good thing is that, I learned how to write articles, SEO. Twitter was invented when I was in college. Okay. So I was like, I know how to market things on a 140 character thing. Maybe I'd turn it into a passion of mine. So I went to school for journalism, didn't do any journalism. I did, right out of school. I'm in Orange County. So let me preface that. And it is a very medical device heavy area. There are no, there's like maybe 1 or 2 book publishers in Orange County, Entrepreneur Press. And I think Bowtie was here.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. A lot of smaller indie book publishers. I believe Teachers Created Material. What's the other one? 2 teacher publishing companies are in the Orange County area. So very niche publishers, very small. So I never really thought to myself like, oh, I'm going to I'm just going to go after that. No, I ended up doing proofreading and marketing for proofreading for heart catheters. That was my big girl job out of college. And boy, that was boring.
That sounds exciting.
Oh, proofreading labels for heart catheters. Ooh. 28 different languages, which made me a really good proofreader. So then I started looking around. I was like, maybe I could freelance proofreading because, you know, I need to not read about how to insert a catheter into somebody's leg vein. So then I actually connected with the Teachers Created Material freelancer pool and started proofreading there, got into a little bit of proofreading for Teachers Created Materials. They do, you know, they create textbooks and things that they can use for their own classrooms, and they get published. So I started doing that, a little bit of proofreading there, got into fact checking. So just by virtue of saying like, hey, I have this skill set that I've been working on and I love books. You know, obviously you have to take a test to make sure that you know proofreading, Chicago Manual of Style, which I ended up learning in school anyway, because you had to learn Chicago, APA, AP Style, MLA, PCP, THC, all that good stuff, right? So I was like, okay, well, I've got all these damn things. I might as well use them. I applied for that and I got really interested in that. That's my freelance gig. So I got little jobs like that. I expanded a little bit, and then I got a job working in the Medicare insurance, proofreading and all of that stuff. I'm like, all right, heart catheters, Medicare, health insurance. So I was like, I'm never going to get into publishing, like real publishing. But then I saw and I found Entrepreneur Press because I didn't even know about them. I found them on Media Bistro. Media Bistro is a platform that you could, or it's basically like it's like a Publisher's Weekly. But how would you describe Media Bistro, Jen?
Gosh, I actually haven't been on it in a while, but I think it's a little bit of everything. There's news on there, but there's also a big job site where you can post your resume, or you can go on and find jobs specifically in media. So it's a little bit of everything. It's not just book publishing. It's film, and it's radio, and it's TV, and it's all of it together, kind of smushed together. But yeah, it's a big mega job site more than anything.
Right. And so I was like, well, I have a journalism degree. I might as well go look in here and see if I can find a job that I'm actually going to be passionate about. I didn't find a job that I was passionate about because I don't want to move to LA to be part of like the big media companies. And I'm in Orange County, and I'm like, I don't want to really drive anywhere. That's what happens when you move from LA to Orange County. You just stop wanting to drive places.
Right.
It was like, my radius needs to be within here, like no more than 20 minutes on the 405. And if you've ever been on the 405 during rush hour, you understand.
That could be 1 mile. I mean,
right. It really could. But I encountered Entrepreneur Press and I found it, and I was like, I love it. I remember interviewing for it, and I'm like, I'm in. And it was like a marketing specialist position. It was the lowest of the low. It was entry level. And I was like, I don't care. It's a pay cut. I don't care. I want to be in. Right. Let me be in. Let me be part of your world. And my little Ariel moment. So I got into it that way. And then I started, learning a little bit about this, a little bit about that. I was, still doing freelance proofreading on the side for the children's or for the teachers publishing place until I just couldn't do both. And then I started just learning and really digging into and sinking my teeth into publishing. And I was just so lucky to work at a publisher. Lucky, big air quotes. I don't know how lucky it is when you have to learn all the things, but it ended up working out in my favor when you're like, I have to do this, and now I have to learn how to do this. And I was so hungry and eager that I just like, sure, I'll learn how to do a print run. Sure, I'll learn how to do proofreading or upload to this and find. I was just ready and willing.
Yeah.
Even at a pay cut, It is what it is.
That's how you learn. That's how you learn publishing, because as we'll talk about here a little later, there are programs that you can take and be a part of, like in a higher ed setting, but there aren't that many, and it's not like a regular major that you find at every university. So you have to be self-taught to some degree. I think that's how my story was too, even though I came at it from a slightly different background. Well, not slightly different background, very different background, but our similarity is that I was also a journalism major, and of course had those big journalism major dreams. And I'm a little older than you. So I
Barely.
didn't have Twitter when I'm very much dating myself, but yes, it was the 90s. So it was all print or broadcast or radio, and those were your choices. And so I have a face for print, so that's what I went with. And I love writing, and I always have. So that was my degree. And my first job lasted 6 weeks. It was bad. It was for a little weekly newspaper. It was not a fit for me at all, nor was I a fit for them. So I did what you're not supposed to do, and I just quit with no plan. I'm like, I cannot do this. I cannot. And I happened to do, I was blanketing all of Indianapolis and the surrounding areas with my resume. And one of the places I sent it to was a very small book publishing company that only did books about Indiana. So that shows you how tiny it was. But a really wonderful regional press, and they took a chance on me. And same thing, it was very, very small. There was an owner, there were 2 or 3 employees. We did 5 or 6 books a year, and that was it. And so because it was so small, I had to do all the things. I had to learn how to ship books. I had to learn how to do some accounting. I had to learn how to do the editorial and the acquisition. So even though it was chaotic and I was probably pretty underpaid, as most people who start in publishing are, I kind of looked at it as my master's experience because I got to try all the things, and it just, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I'm so grateful to my former boss, Nancy Niblack Baxter, who's just amazing and took a chance. And so I did. I got to learn those things. And from there, I moved on to Wiley, which is obviously a much larger publisher. They're based in Hoboken/New York, but they have an Indianapolis office because they bought a smaller company right when I was joining. And so that's when I started my journey in acquisitions. And I did not know what acquisitions was when I applied for the job. I'm like, sure, I can do it. I'll fake it till I make it.
There you go.
But for those who don't know, the acquisitions editors are the people who go out and find the people to write the books. And so you work with the talent and you cultivate talent and go find authors. And then, once you sign them on, you go through the whole contract process, and then you shepherd them through the process as they're working with their various editors and production people. And, you just kind of are their person as they go through the process. And I found that I really loved that. And it was a wonderful experience. And it was on a much larger scale than what I had done at my first place of employment. And that's when I just really got the bug, because I loved all of those parts of it. I loved the business part. And I never thought I would, even though I have a business minor. I thought Miss Editor lady. And I have done that for many years, and I do, but the business piece is what really spoke to me. So I love contract negotiation, which is weird because I'm not a confrontational person. And I love running a profit and loss statement, which is funny because I'm not a math person. But those pieces, kind of doing the big picture stuff is what I loved. And, it's what I've continued to do for many years since then. So that's my journey.
Learning how the sausage is made is never the same path, I think. No. And I don't know about you, but I couldn't afford to go take a summer course in book publishing. I know that there's one, or there used to be one at NYU publishing program. And I was like, man, those people are so lucky. Right. And I think that, to your point about there's no real program about it. There's just no undergrad program. You can't major in book publishing, although it really should be. I'm thoroughly convinced it's when you go to these things and when you know the people that you get into immediately the HarperCollins and all of those places. Because I had to have X amount of years in order to even get considered for a smaller imprint of a HarperCollins, which ended up not being a good fit because guess what? They wanted me to move to the Bay Area for very small pay. And I'm like, I can't afford to do that.
No one can afford to live in the Bay Area if you don't have small pay.
It's I would need to have 10 roommates in a 2-bedroom.
In a shoebox.
It's yeah. And then the location of that. So we talked about how there's no degree. Fine. But there are skill sets that you can definitely apply. So if you're if you're a copywriter, you can definitely go into this. If you are if you're good at finance, you can go into the financial part of it. Both of us have been through the ringer. We've been through all of the things. And so we know that there are different skill sets. So when we work with people, I like to think that, we hired people who are really good project managers when we were, working together at different publishers, people who didn't have experience in publishing, but loved books. And it's not usually the other way around. It's like, I love books, but have no experience in anything.
Right. And I think that's a good point. Like, I always kind of joke and say, people who say, I want to be in publishing because I love books. Okay, yes, everyone in publishing loves books, and that's great, but that's not a transferable skill, just that you like to read and love books. But I think you can tack that on to the skill sets that you have and that you're good at. So, for example, like you mentioned, if you're a finance person, but you love to read and you secretly always wanted to be in publishing, you can be. Everybody has a finance department. We have people who have to help us with royalty statements and P&Ls and all of the financy things. And you can still be in the environment that you want to be in publishing and be around the books, but do the thing that's going to actually make you money. So I think that's important too. And if you're transferring from another industry, for example, you mentioned that you kind of cut your teeth on, proofreading and copywriting and copy editing for other things. I think that's great. I mean, it's very hard to walk in the door of a publishing company with zero experience and zero skills and say, hello, I want to be in publishing. You have to start somewhere. And so maybe that is working for corporate marketing. Maybe that is for, writing newsletters or what have you. Take those skills and cultivate them for a couple of years and, then reach out and see what you can find in book publishing. And, even though COVID is not a good thing, the benefit of a post-COVID world is that more publishers are open to remote work now. And in the past, they weren't. You had to live in New York. You had to live in the Bay Area. There were not many book publishers in the flyover states. And so now those walls are kind of broken down, and it's a lot easier to find people who are willing to do remote work.
I need to ask you a personal question.
Yes.
Okay. I know we both love to read, but do you find that you read less for pleasure?
Yes.
At the end of the day, do you want to go in, to the nice little corner of your house and read?
I do, because I'm a glutton for punishment. So, we work on books all day, and then I'm like, what should I do for fun? Maybe I'll read a book. And probably my family who's listening to this right now, they're probably laughing because I buy books like it's my job. And so
it
is my job. I have so many books that I buy and I don't read, but I love them and they're my babies and I'm not going to get rid of them. But what's been working for me lately is I listen to audiobooks in the car, and now I feel very accomplished because I read that way while I'm out running my errands and driving my kids. And so I read 10 books this year already just on audio.
Congratulations. I think I've broken 3. So I actually think I've read less in my entire for myself, for my personal. I read a lot of books for work. Obviously, you read them, you proofread them, you read them for marketing purposes. But for myself, I feel like I've read less books. I've been more into podcasts, which is, just probably because we've been doing a podcast. But I do feel like my love of reading personally has diminished a little bit, and I'm more into short audio format these days. So I'm still going to count them. So just because you love to read doesn't mean that, it's an immediate fit. It might be the other way around, you know.
Exactly. And, to find out more about what would be a fit, I think something people don't realize is there are so many jobs in publishing. It's not just editing, right? There's a lot to do there. So if you're trying to break into the business, I would suggest that you creep around on the corporate websites of companies that you want to work for. See what kind of jobs they're advertising for. Get a feel for what those job descriptions are asking for, because that way if you want to kind of make a plan, say, okay, and in 3 years or 4 years or whatever, I want to get into book publishing, you can start making those moves now. Explore the options. For example, me saying I didn't really know what an acquisitions editor was when I applied for the job. I didn't. And, now I feel like I kind of know who all the players are in a book publishing company, at least after 25 years, I would think I would. But do that research, become a student of companies that you admire or that you like. If there are certain kinds of books that you like to read, if you love romance books and you want to look into Harlequin, or you love sci-fi and you want to look into Tor, or whatever. If you love business books and you want to look into Entrepreneur or Forbes or what have you, I think that there are lots of ways to get to know the places that you are shooting for, and try to craft a work history that will meet those needs.
Absolutely. And I think I'm pretty sure, because I took this class and I had an experience on Media Bistro, there are courses that you can take. I took a copywriting certificate course on Media Bistro, and the instructor and I didn't really see eye to eye, and I was like, well, and I was working. Keep in mind, I was in my entry level position in publishing, and I was writing back cover copy, and it was getting, it's actually getting published. It's in the back cover copy of some of the books that are still out there, and it met the criteria for the publisher, it met the criteria for Amazon, it met the criteria for all these things. I was like, what am I doing wrong? So then I submitted something very similar to that to my Media Bistro course, and they're like, yeah, this isn't good. So that told me two things. One, get the accreditation for practice. Don't get it for validation.
Yep.
Because everyone's going to be different. They probably didn't have the background that I wanted them to have in book publishing. So do it for certification, the practice. Don't do it for, validation. Just because you don't fit that instructor doesn't mean that you're not going to be good at it. But just continue to do that. Get those things under your belt, because as book publishing is changing, it is becoming a little bit more SEO centric. Mm-hmm. So advertising centric, advertising classes. Google AdWords has courses that are free. EDX has a lot of courses in copywriting. So just as much as writing as you can do, help sharpen your skill set. And then, I would look at this and say like, okay, so you've done these courses. Great. You've passed and you have a certificate. Great. So then you've done the practice. So that means I don't have to train you as much if I were to hire you.
Right. And just to walk it back, there are some publishing programs. There aren't that many that actually offer a full degree in it. There are very few of those, but there are a lot of certificate programs, and there are a few master's programs, like in professional publishing studies as well. So we've got a list of those. We can put them in the show notes so people can see them. But I did want to give a shout out to a couple. One of those is Portland State's program, their master's in publishing. Portland State actually has their own imprint. And so you go through the process of like what it's like to publish a book. We got to know them a little bit through PubWest. They're always at those conferences. So that's an excellent program. And the other one I'd recommend, if editing is your thing, if that is your love and that is, where you feel your skill sets lie, taking the University of Chicago editing courses, that's very beneficial because Chicago style is the predominant style used in book publishing. So you will learn it from the source. You will learn it from University of Chicago. But I don't want anyone to come away from this conversation feeling like, well, if I don't do a certificate program or if I don't do a master's program, then I'm not going to get into publishing. That's not the case at all. The majority of us have not done these things. Right. But I think, if that's important to you to have that kind of credential on your resume, then there are some worthwhile programs to follow.
And if you are a woman out there listening to this, then you are like us and feel like we need to take the time to learn the skill set before we apply to the job. And that's just, it's unfortunate for us. And we're just like, yeah, we just fake it till we make it. Truth is, you could probably fake it till you make it.
Right. Don't feel like you have to check off 1 million boxes before you apply to publishing jobs. Just know how to craft your resume. And there are some wonderful resources out there for that as well. And if there are a couple of different pieces of the publishing puzzle that you feel like you would be a fit for, do a couple of different resumes. Do an editorial resume.
Yes.
Do a resume for operations and business, or do a marketing focused resume. Have a couple, because a lot of these skills overlap. So, you and I do very different things. I'm more on the acquisitions editorial side. You're more on the marketing side, but we both have to write a heck of a lot of copy. So that's, there's that layover. And so I think you can definitely spin it a lot of different ways for the different kinds of jobs that you think you'd be a fit for.
Absolutely. And don't limit your experience in publishing to the big five, to a traditional publisher.
No.
There are several book coaches. There are hybrid publishers. There are several organizations that work around book publishing, but are more operationally similar to just like a regular business. They just happen to work with authors, getting them through the book publishing process.
Right.
And so you could be a project manager at like a SaaS company and then come into this and just work with an individual, helping them get through the process. And it may be, don't limit yourself to that.
No, and don't limit yourself to just book publishers. I mean, you can be in the logistics business. You can work in distribution for a company like Ingram.
Yes.
Or a company like IPG distributes the books and goes out and sells the books to big accounts like Barnes and Noble. You can work for Barnes and Noble. I mean, there are wonderful corporate jobs there. It's more than just working in a bookstore. Amazon has 1,000,001 jobs that are definitely more on the not software, but yeah, like the operations side. But there's so much you can do. You can work for publicity. You can work for a PR firm. A lot of adjacent businesses touch book publishing proper.
Right. So all that to say is the path is never direct. Everyone is different. And we need more people coming from different backgrounds. I would love to see more people coming from the heart catheter proofreading side of business. It's like, Jesus, that was so boring. Well, guess what? Congratulations. Now you can probably proofread a finance book about franchising, which is one thing that I did actually. And I didn't fall asleep.
See, look at you.
There you
The
go.
heart catheter stuff made that possible.
Thank you, Edwards Life Sciences, for that experience.
I love it. Well, I think at the end of the day, even though we kind of poo-pooed the romantic notion of publishing, the fact is that we love it. And we wouldn't be in it if we didn't love it. It really is a business that you get into because you care about the product and you care about how it's made. And so, but just prepare yourself for the fact that it is in fact still a business.
Yeah. Sausage still has to be made, and it's sometimes not pretty.
It's not, but at the end of the day, it's still good sausage.
Very good. I had so many bad thoughts just now.
I know, right? Same. Well, then with that, we're going to wrap it up. We want to thank our producer, Paul Roberts, and our executive producer, Emily Carpenter, Pulse Camp of Little Red Communications. We'll see you next time.
We hope that you gained some valuable insights into the world of book publishing. Head over to broadbookgroup.com to learn more about us and all our services. And be sure to check out all our social media at Broad Book Group. Until then, keep publishing.